squared. All right, I have a few questions for you. What is A?
2.
2. Does that mean our parabola opens up or down?
It
Up.
opened.
All right, good. What is our vertex?
-2 and
-2,
-1.
-1.
-2, -1. Would you call that a minimum point or a maximum point?
Minimal.
Minimum point. Nice. What's the line of symmetry?
X
-2.
equal -2.
X equals -2. Nice. All right, very good. There are some other key points that I want you all to be able to find. What are those points that I also want you to be able to identify?
The x-axis and the x-intercept and the y-intercept.
Yes, x-intercepts. How do you find the x-intercepts?
You set the equation to 0.
All right, so 2, I'm going to, instead of putting 0 equals, I'm going to put that at the end. 2 times x plus 2 squared minus 1 equals 0. All right, someone other than the carrier, what would you do first to solve for x?
Add 1 on both sides.
Correct. Add 1. We have 2 times x plus 2 squared equals 1. What should we do next? Someone other than the carrier. Anybody other than the carrier.
So would you still square it, Dr. Thomas, even though the 2 is on the outside of the parentheses?
We don't want to square it because we don't want to get it bigger, right? We want to get rid of things.
Do you divide by the 2?
That's divide by 2. Yes, that's divide by 2. I know y'all trying to avoid the fraction, but we can't avoid it here. All right. 2 cancels. We have x plus 2 square equals 1/2. All right. Now, how do I get rid of the second power?
You square both
Yeah, square
sides.
rooted.
Square rooted. Not square, because if we squared it, it would be to the 4th power. We made it even bigger. We want to square root it because that's the inverse of squaring something. But when you square root something that is squared, don't forget you got to do what?
Put the plus and minus sign.
Plus, yeah.
All right, I'm going to squeeze this over here. X plus 2 equals plus or minus the square root of 1/2. All right, what else?
You're going to
Minus
subtract 2 from each side.
Correct. I'm going to squeeze it in the front. I like that number in the front. I like my radical second. Okay. X equals -2. Okay, that cancels out over here. Then we have -2 plus or minus square root of 1/2. Now, it's customary not to keep a radical in the denominator. So what we really have is the square root of 1 over the square root of 2. What would you do to get rid of that radical in the denominator?
You'll square
You
the
gotta
top and the
multiply that
bottom.
by itself.
We don't want to square
multiply
both
it.
sides. When
I
we do
mean,
x,
square rooted.
we don't
No.
want to do square root because we don't have x then. We have square root of x. I just want this part right here. I want to get rid of the radical. What should we do?
You gotta
Multiply
multiply it by the
both
square root
sides.
of 2 to the top and the
Yeah,
bottom.
yes. Square root of 2, square root of 2. All right. So that's -2 plus or minus. All right. Let's look at the numerators. We have a square root of 1 times the square root of 2. What is that?
Square root of 2.
Square
Yep.
root of 2. Yeah.
Divided by
2.
1.
2, right?
2.
Square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is really the square root of 4, which is 2. So the point was to get rid of the radical. That's why we multiplied it times something that will give us a perfect square. All right, now if I say what are these numbers really, and I say now I think Weber sign will ask you to put these points in. How many x-intercepts do we have in this?
2.
2. All right, let's write it out. One of them is -2 plus the square root of 2 over 2. And the other one is, let's call it x of 2, -2 minus the square root of 2 over 2. But I want you to be able to, if you had to graph this by hand, I want you to know what it means. So we're going to write it as a point as well. So again, Weber sign would take this, all right? Weber sign would take that, but I want you to write it as a point, all right? We know that we plugged in a 0 for the y, and we're going to figure out what x is. So I need y'all to get out the calculators and tell me, let's go with hundreds place. What is -2 plus the square root of 2 over 2 really? What is that? Anybody? -2 plus the square root of 2.
-1.29.
Nice. -1.29 is correct. Any questions about that? I don't know which one is which now. I just wrote that one first.
That's for the
What
plus.
-2? What's the other one? All right, hold on.
The other one is -2.71.
Correct. -2.71. All right. Any questions about how she got those two numbers? Are we able to get to it if you're using your calculator right now? All right. Because what on the test in 2 weeks, I ask you for the decimal. All right. And I want you to be able to know how to round it as well. All right. Great. There's one more point I'm looking for. What is another point that I want you to find other
The
than this?
y-intercept.
Yeah, yep. Let's see. How do you find that?
You set x equals 0.
Correct. So we plug in a 0 for x, then what is y? If we plug in a 0x, I would use
It's
I would
7.
use this form. Yep, the general form. 7. You plug in a 0, you get out 7. All right. Let's plot these points. All right. Again, what was the vertex?
-2, -1.
-2, -1. All right. So where do I go? If I'm at the origin, where do I go?
To the left 2.
Left 2,
And down 1.
down 1.
Okay. That's going to be the lowest point of this graph. All right. And then we said -1.290 was one x-intercept. So I'm going to go left and may possibly go right here. And then we said -2.71. I'm going to go left past -2, closer to -3, right here. And 0.7, 0.7 up here somewhere. Y'all see the little U is being formed. I'm going to try to curve it as best as I can. The axis of symmetry was what again?
-2.
-2, -1.
The axis of symmetry?
X equals
No,
-2.
x
2.
equals -2.
X equals -2. So that just represents that line right here. So that's what I mean about you can't just put 2. You got to say X or write out X equals -2. All right. Very good. Let's try. I'm going to give you one right now. Let's try this one. I'm gonna give you a couple minutes to work on it. F of X equals 3x squared minus 6x plus 4. All right. I want you to put this general form in standard form. So, what did you do first?
Factor A, which is 3 out of the first two terms.
Very good. Did y'all get 3 times x squared minus 2x plus 4? Put a 1 in the chat if you got that. Put a 1 in the chat if you got that. All right. The ones didn't come in too quick. Oh, there they go. All right. What's the next step?
Divide the second term by 2, then square it.
All right. And it's really dividing the middle coefficient or the second coefficient. All right. The middle coefficient. So just the number. All right. Divided by 2 and square it. All right. So did y'all get 3 times x squared minus 2x? If I divide -2 by 2, I get -1. If I square it -1, I get +1. Plus 1 minus 1. Did y'all get that? Put a 2
That's
in the
correct.
chat. Put a 2 in the chat if y'all got that. All right. All right, let's go on to the next step. Step 3. Anybody else other than the Kira can tell me what we're supposed to do now.
You got to take out the -1 and then multiply it by 3.
Oh, very nice. All right. So this times this connected. So because that's 3 times that, when I take the part we don't want out of the parentheses, we are really taking out -3. Did y'all get that? Put a 3 in the chat if y'all got that part right. Okay. We're doing good. All right. Last step. What's the last step? The fourth step.
You got to factor the trinomial.
Yep. Back to the trinomial. Did y'all get 3 times x minus 1 squared plus 1? Put a 4 in the chat if you made it to the end. Put a 4 on the chat. All right. A couple y'all made it. All right. Let me ask you if you have questions first before I throw some questions out. Do you have questions about what we just wrote first? All right. Well, Monisha, you got a question? No, you just got unmuted.
So do you always divide like the 6 by a 2 or like whatever the middle number is by 2 to get the
Oh.
-6?
Yep. So completing the square, we divide this by whatever the middle coefficient is, divided by 2 and squared. All right. Here we go.
Okay.
What is A?
Stop.
Oh, yes.
3.
Yes.
Okay, my mic was on mute. I'm sorry. Can you go over like the x squared minus 2x plus 1 real quick for me?
All right. X squared. So we completed the square. You talking right here? At this step right here?
Step 4.
Or right here? Which one?
Step 4. That one, that's step 4.
All right. So do you know how to complete the square first?
Yes, ma'am. do.
Okay,
But when I
so
get
you got
down to like the x squared minus 2x plus 1, it is like confusing me a
yeah.
little bit.
All right. So we're keeping this inside. That's right here, right? Keeping that here. We're moving the part that I have highlighted. I'm moving the -1 out, but I can't move it out by itself because it's connected to 3. 3 times -1 is -3. All right, so that's what that is right here. See it? Let me erase
Yes,
this
ma'am.
part. And see? 3 times -1 is -3. So we moved it out because that extra stuff is not helping me factor that trinomial. I got to move it out. I just want a straight trinomial. I don't need the extra information that's in there. All right.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
A equals 3. Somebody already said that. Parabola opens up or down.
Up.
All right. Opens up. Vertex is
1, 1.
great. Is that a minimum point or a maximum point?
Minimum point.
Minimum.
Minimum point. Line of symmetry or axis of symmetry, however you want to say it.
X
X
equals 1.
equals 1.
Nice. All right. X-intercepts. I'm going to give you 2 minute x-intercepts and y-intercepts. All right, maybe I need to do this one. Let me see. I don't know if y'all encountered one like this before. Yes, you have. Yes, you have. So try x-intercepts. All right, let's get started with x-intercepts. How do you find the x-intercepts?
Set Y to 0.
Yep. All right, so I always use the standard form for this one. And for my y-intercepts, I use the general form. All right. So the first thing, did you subtract 1 on both sides?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Did you divide by 3?
Yes.
Yes.
Nice. Did you attempt to square root it all?
No.
All right. Here's the problem. There is a negative under the square root. Therefore, we conclude what?
It's no solution or
Not no solution, but there
Undefined.
are no what?
x-intercepts.
X-intercepts. All right. So what does that mean if graphically? What does that mean if there are no x-intercepts? If you were
Do
looking
not
at it,
exist.
say it again.
Do not exist.
No, it's still a parabola, but on the graph, if there are no x-intercepts, what's significant about that on the graph? Yeah, I might have to show it to you. Any other guesses? Y'all want to guess at it?
It
Is
doesn't
it like
go
a
through it.
horizontal line?
It doesn't cross the x axis, so it's upside down.
Yeah, who said that? Was that Christina?
Ashley.
Ashley. All right, Ashley. All right, it's not upside. It's not upside down because it still opens up, right? It opens up, but it doesn't cross the x-axis. We don't have any x-intercepts. That's what x-intercepts are. The points that cross the x-axis. All right, y-intercept. Let's go for that one. That's usually a little bit more simpler. All right. Now, which form which I'll use to find the y-intercept?
General.
The
I
general.
would too. I will use the general form. You can use the standard form if you want to. It just seems easier to me to plug into the original. All right, 3 times 0 squared minus 6 times 0 plus 4. So what does f of 0 equal?
4.
All right, and what is that point? If I had to write it as a point, what is the
0, 4.
y? 0, 4.
Up.
So yep. and none for the, we have no x-intercepts, but we have a y-intercept, which is 0, 4. All right, I'm going to graph this on this same little coordinate plane over here. All right, first point you would plot would be what? It doesn't matter. What point would you plot?
The vertex.
All right, 1, 1. So let me put that right here. What's another point you would plot?
0, 4.
Yep, 0, 4. All right. We only have 2 points for this one. We need more. What would you do if you don't have enough points? Because we didn't have any x-intercepts. That would have helped us out, but we don't have them. So what would you do to figure out what some more points are?
Could you like plug in random numbers like 2 or 3 or
Very good. Let me see who said
Christina?
it. Christina said it. Very good. We've been graphing this whole semester. You do a t-table, right? You can plug in any points you want, and she recommended that we plug in. Let me erase this over here. 2, and I think that's good because notice. Okay, yeah, that's in my way. So notice it looks like it's curving this way. Y'all see it? So we kind of want to know what's going on to the right of that. So we already know where 1 is 1 because that's the vertex. We already know that if we plug in 0, we get 4. But what if we plug in 2? So you decide which form would you rather use. Would you plug it into the general form or would you plug it into the standard form? It's up to you. Which one do you think is the easiest on your brain? I
The
don't know.
general.
You think the general? Anybody else think the standard? Because I probably would have chosen the standard. All right. It depends on what you think is the easiest. All right. So plug in 2 and 2, whichever one you want to plug in. We should still get the same answer because these 2 forms are equivalent to each other. They are the same thing. Plug in 2, what do you get?
4.
4. That's nice. Look at that symmetry. We plugged in a 0 and got 4. And now we're plugging in a 2. Right? And we got 4. So it's looking like it's doing something. I need to curve this a little bit more or something. Maybe it's doing something like that. Maybe. Okay. And then we already talked about the axis symmetry is x equals 1. So it splits this parabola at x equals 1. That's a vertical line. Imaginary vertical line. All right. Any questions about that example? We're finished with that one. All right. The one that I definitely wanted to get to today. This one. Why is this one a little different from what we're used to this week? A little different.
A is a negative 1.
Negative.
A is negative. Yes, A is negative. All right. Let's put it in standard form. So we should do what first? Step 1 is
Factor the
Factor
A.
out of negative 1.
factor out negative 1. And I'm gonna write it negative 1 out, even though that's it's understood that it's negative 1, but I'm gonna write it out until the end. I'm gonna put that negative 1 there. What goes inside of the parentheses?
X squared minus 6x.
Very good. When you factor out negatives, your signs change, right? Because negative 1 times a negative 6x is positive 6x. So we can't change the problem. What we're writing down here has to be equivalent to this. We can't add things to it or subtract things to it, and now they're totally different. All right, next step would be what?
Divide the middle term by 2 and then square
All
it.
right, all right. Someone other than the carrier, tell me what would you put inside of that? When you complete the square, what would you put inside parentheses?
X squared minus 6x plus 9.
Plus 9. All
Plus
right.
9 minus 9.
Minus 9.
Plus
Yeah.
9 minus 9. Okay. Very nice. Someone other than Alicia, Kenneth, and the carrier. What happens now? What happens now? Someone other than Nakiria, Alicia, and Kenneth. Nakiria, would you stay behind for me after class? Stay
Yes,
behind
ma'am.
just a couple minutes with me. All right. Anybody other than Nakiria, Kenneth, and Alicia? Tell me what happens next.
You take out the -9.
All right. And what is the -9 attached to?
The -1.
So what are we really taking out?
The -1.
So you just
No.
taking a 9 because you got to multiply.
Yeah, you have to always multiply. Isn't it? You see how it's inside the parentheses, right? And -1 is on the outside. So isn't that multiplication? All right, y'all see it? Y'all gotta resolve that issue if y'all have an issue with that. You gotta see that this is -1 times everything in here. All right. But since I'm trying to take out just this part, I have to still multiply times that when I take it out. So -1 times x squared minus 6x plus 9 minus 8. So we are taking out plus 9 because -1 times -9 is plus 9. So that's what we really taking out. -1 times -9. That's what we're taking out. All right, moving on. Next step would be to do what?
Factor the
Factor.
trinomial.
Yep. All right. Can someone other than Alicia, Nakiria, and Kenna tell me what are the factors? What are the factors for this right here? Perfect square trinomial. This perfect square trinomial. Did I teach y'all the trick to factor that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Nobody else remember the trick other than Alicia, Kenneth, and Nakiria? I gave y'all a trick on
It
Tuesday.
will be x minus 3, and then square
Very
it
good.
as 1. Well, -1 in the front.
All right. X minus 3 times x minus 3. So that's why we write it as x minus 3 squared plus 1. Very nice. Thank you, Tanaya. All right. Now we have a situation that's a little different. All right. So again, let's go through the questions. A equals what?
-1.
-1.
And I said I was going to leave that 1 off. All right. And then what does that mean? Does our parabola open up or downward?
It's
Down.
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 Yep. Yep. Vertex is what?
3, 1.
3.
Very nice. Because our parabola opens down, do I have a minimum point or a maximum point?
Maximum.
Maximum.
Maximum point this time. All right. Our line of symmetry or axis of symmetry is what?
X equals 3.
3. X equals
Yep.
3. Yeah.
Yep. X equals 3. All right. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to find the x-intercepts. All right. What do you think the intercepts are? Let's start with the x-intercepts. What do you think?
I got 4 and 2.
That is correct. All right. Let's see how. All right. So you set negative, open parenthesis, x minus 3 squared plus 1 equals 0. Subtract 1 from both sides. You get negative, open parenthesis, x minus 3 squared equals -1. Let's get rid of those negatives. Divide by -1 on both sides. You have x minus 3 squared equals +1 now. So this is not going to be an issue with the radical. Square root both sides. But because you rooted something that was being squared, there's a rule that we need to insert our plus or minus here. The square root of 1 is just 1, so we don't really need to carry that radical over the 1 because 1 is a perfect square. Now we're going to add 3 to both sides. I like to put that number in the front. All right, so we have x equals 3 plus or minus 1, which means one solution is going to be 3 plus 1, whatever that is, 4, right? And the other one would be 3 minus 1, which is 2. To write them as points, how would you write them? Other than Kenneth, how would you write them as points on the graph?
4, 0, 2, 0.
Correct. 4, 0, and 2, 0. Those are our x-intercepts. Y-intercept. Someone other than Kenneth and Alicia, what is the y-intercept?
0, -8.
0, -8 is correct. So, Nakira, did you use the general form or the standard form for that when you plugged in 0?
The general form.
Okay, I probably would have done that too. For the y-intercept, plugging in that 0, and y'all gonna notice it's usually this if it's a constant, right? It's usually this because it kind of wipes out the x's when you plug in a 0. All right, let's plot some points here. Let's see if we have enough points. All right, let's plot 3, 1 first. So I'm gonna go to right, 3 up 1. That's my maximum point or my minimum point again?
Maximum.
Maximum.
I know that's going to be my highest point. All right. And then let's plot 4, 0. Let's plot 2, 0. And we also said 0, -8 is off my grid here. So I got to create something down here. All right. 0, -8. All right. Let's see. I want that orange. 0. There we go. So it's doing a little something like that. And we know it's going to be symmetric again. That's why we look for the axis of symmetry. That's, I guess, supposed to help us know how to divide, how to draw our upside down U at this point. But if I see those key points, then I know you know what you're talking about. All right, let's look at this example. It's a little different. Write the standard form of the equation of the parabola whose vertex is 1, 2, and that passes through the point 3, -6. They want us to come up with the equation. of the parabola. Now, if it's a parabola, what type of function we know it is?
Squaring function.
Yep. Or what else you call it?
Quadratic.
Quadratic function. Both are correct. So we're not doing anything different from what we've done. We're not doing something totally, completely different. It's just going backwards. They're giving us information and they're saying, now you come up with the equation. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use the information that they gave us to form the standard form of a quadratic function. All right. What's the template again for the standard form? What is it again? Let's start with the basics.
F of x equals a parentheses x minus h close parentheses squared plus k.
Very nice. All right. Good. Now, what is one piece of information that they gave us?
The vertex. So you know
They
it'll
gave us
be,
the vertex.
well, since it's a
Yeah.
positive one, it'll be a negative one.
All right. So I know that 1, 2 is what? Let's go with that. 1, 2 is what?
Well, the
What
k will be
letters?
2.
H and the K.
H and K. Yep, H, K. That's my HK. So let's substitute HK into the standard form. Or vertex, and say or vertex into the standard form. So we have f of x equals a times x minus h is what? What is h?
1.
1. So we're going to put
1.
1 here. Yep. Close parenthesis square plus what's k?
2.
2.
2. Put 2 here. There's only one more thing we have to replace. Can you tell me what that one thing is? We got to
A.
find one more thing. A.
A.
That's, yep, this is what only thing left we got to find. So what we're going to do is use the information that they gave us to solve for A. What other piece of information did they give us?
The point 3 comma
The
negative
point.
6.
3 comma negative 6. Yes. Yes. So now we got to use this somehow. Now, Norma, 3 negative 6, what letters do they represent or variables do they normally represent in math?
X, Y.
X,
X,
Y. Nice. Very nice. X, Y. So what we're going to do is solve for A by substituting the point, the given point, into step 1. All right. So step 1, we ended up getting f of x equals a times x minus 1 squared plus 2. So we're going to use that information. All right. I'm going to put an equal sign right here. We don't know what a is. We're trying to find that out. So we can't do anything with a. But what is x? What is x?
3.
3.
Very good.
3.
3. 3. So we're going to make a substitution. 3. Then we have minus 1 squared plus 2. What are we going to put over here?
You're going to put the negative 6
Very good. How do you know you had to put a negative 6 right on the
because
left
it's the Y.
That's yeah.
Because that's the y. And we know that what equals y?
X.
X.
F of x,
F
right?
of A.
F of X.
F of x equals y. So when we're trying to figure out what to plug in for f of x, we know that y is the same thing as f of x. So we're just making that substitution for f of x, -6. All right, we're going to solve for a. What would you do first to solve for a?
Subtract 2.
Where do if we want to use order operation, what would you do?
Break down the
I'll
parentheses.
get parentheses.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do that first. Let's do this. All right, so we have -6 equals a times what squared?
2 squared.
2 squared plus 2. Then we know that that is a times 4, right?
Yes. Plus
All
2.
right, which is really 4a plus 2 if we wrote it the right way. 4a plus 2. Then what?
Then subtract 2
Yes,
from both
then,
sides. Yeah.
yep. Then we get -8 equals 4a. Then
Divide.
divide by what?
4.
Yep, divide by 4. I always have to ask sometimes. I just want to make sure you knew it was 4, not -8. All right, and so a equals what?
-2.
-2.
All right, now that we found a, once you find a, substitute a back into step 1. All right, so step 1, we had f of x equals a, right? But a we found out to be -2. So we put -2 times, let me go back up here. Here we go. This is what we got. X minus 1 squared.
Plus 2.
X minus 1 squared plus 2. So this is our answer. We had just come up with the function that has a vertex of 1, 2, but it also passes through the point 3, -6. All right. A is -2. We already figured that out. Does the parabola open up or down?
It's
Down.
down.
All right. It's down. They told us what the vertex was, didn't they?
Yes.
It's what?
1 and 2.
Which means we have a minimum or maximum point.
Minimum. No, that's maximum. That's maximum.
Maximum. How did you know it's maximum?
Because it's negative.
Because it's
It's
a
a negative
-2.
leading coefficient. So it's a reflection across the x-axis, so it turns down. So you have a maximum point. Line of symmetry is, or axis of symmetry.
X equals
It's
1.
1.
All right. Notice I'm changing it up because I don't want y'all to think. I may ask you for line of symmetry. I may ask you for axis of symmetry. It's the same thing. I don't want to make sure you know that, so I switch it up every once in a while. All right. X-intercepts. How do you find them?
Set the equation to 0.
All right. All right. So let me show you how we get to these, the 0, 0, 2, 0. So we have -2 times x minus 1 squared plus 2 equals 0. Subtract 2 from both sides. Then that cancels over here. We get -2 times x minus 1 squared equals -2. Divide by -2. And you end up getting x minus 1 squared equals 1. Okay. Then square root both sides. X minus 1 equals plus or minus 1 because the square root of 1 is just 1. Then we add 1 to both sides. I usually put that in the front. All right, so that's x equals 1 plus or minus 1, which means one version of it is 1 plus 1, which is 2, and another version of it is 1 minus 1, which is 0. So we have 2, 0, and 0, 0. Very good. Any questions about the x-intercepts? Try the y-intercept now. Try the y-intercept. What is it?
I got 0.
Yep. All right. So, and which, oh, okay. Oh, this is a good one, yeah. Because we didn't have a general form for this one. This one you had to use what we have, right? Or else it'll be more work. F of x, well, let's go ahead and plug in 0. F of 0 equals negative 2 times 0 minus 1 squared plus 2. All right, let me undo. All right, squared plus, let me read off my sheet over here, 2. So F of 0 equals negative 2 times negative 1 squared plus 2. F of 0 equals negative 2 times a positive 1 because negative 1 squared is a positive 1 plus 2. F of 0, negative 2 times 1 is negative 2 plus 2, which is 0. Therefore, our x and y intercept is 0, 0. So that 0, 0 is an x and a y intercept. All right, let's plot it. We have 0, 0, obviously. We have 2, 0, obviously. Our vertex was 1, 2 right here. If you wanted to, you can add more points to figure out what it is. That's pretty good, though. I see that symmetry. I see the symmetry, so I'm just going to try to curve it. And, of course, our axis of symmetry divides that in half. Any questions about that one? Okay. All right, we're going to do this last little bit, an application problem. That kind of shows you one real life way you could apply quadratic functions. Let's talk about maximum revenue. It says the total R earned from manufacturing handheld video games is given by this function here. What type of function is it?
A quadratic.
It's a quadratic. Will it open up or down?
It'll be down.
Will it open down? Okay, good. Now, how do they get these functions? Well, if you have enough data, you can plug into your graphing calculator, believe it or not, and it will give you the function that models the data you put in it. So I kind of skipped that section. That was like 1.10, but obviously this is not going to come up out of the blue somewhere. You get data like what's about to happen down here. If you have a company, they know if they sell this video game at this amount of money, they receive so much money back. You can keep up with that data, put that data in the computer, or even a graphic calculator could do it, and it will spit out that function right there. It'll tell you what's the best fit, the function that's the best model for your data. All right, so where P is the price per unit in dollars, where P is the price per unit in dollars. So if I say find the revenues when the prices per unit are the following. First, let's talk about revenue. Since we all have side hustles. What is revenue? What is revenue?
Your money before taxes.
Money before
It's
taxes,
after.
or okay, if you have a business It'll be all the money that's coming into your business before what? Give me some stuff that you have to pay for.
Like before, like your
Light
employee
bill.
wage.
Your light bill. Yep.
Utilities.
If you have a building, you got to pay for the building, your light bill, your employees. All right. So there's a difference between profit and revenue. What is profit? What's the difference? What is profit?
That's the money
Profit
you
is
earn.
everything you have after you pay all of that.
Yeah. That's the money that you get to keep. Uh, after you paid everybody, all of those expenses that you have to pay every month. So revenue is just all the money that's coming in. It says find the revenues. What do y'all think the R stands for in this function?
The
Price.
revenue.
Revenue. R stands for revenue. And what does the P stand for?
The profit.
Price per unit. So make sure you know when they tell you what it is, make sure you understand what that is so that you can answer these questions. Like find the revenues when the prices per unit are $20. So where are we going to plug the 20 into? What? R or P?
P.
P. All right? Because it's telling us prices per unit are. All right? So P is the price per unit. So here's how we're going to write this. I'm going to put it like this. R of $20 equals negative 25 times something squared plus 1200 times something. So all we're doing is evaluating like you are normally evaluating. That's all we're doing. So what it's saying is, let's say we own this video games company, and we sold this particular game at $20 per game. How much revenue would we receive with this function here? How much revenue would we receive? So I want you to
$14,000.
okay. So let's just say we're getting that per month. $14,000. That's our revenue. Again, it sounds good, but it's revenue. We hadn't paid everybody yet. All right. Let's try 25. If let's say we decided to increase the price of this game, do you think we'll get more money back for the $25? If we
Yep.
charge 25, okay. Let's charge $25 for this game instead of $20. All right, someone other than the carrier. Someone other than the carrier tell me what do we get?
14,375.
Correct. So it did increase. It did increase. It didn't increase a lot. Okay. What about if we charge $30? This whoever is the boss of the company side, let's charge $30 for it. Do y'all think it's gonna increase our revenue? Good question here. Will it increase our revenue if we charge $30 for this game?
No.
No, it doesn't. How much did we get?
$13,500.
All right. So let me ask you this. Why do you think it went down from a real life point of view now, not mathematically? Okay. Why do you think it went down?
I guess because the more money you make, the more your bills are.
No, no, no. You said the more money you make, the more your bills are. Hmm, I'm looking for something else. From a real life situation, the company increased the price, but the revenue went down.
I guess since the price increased, people didn't want to pay that amount of money for that
Yes,
game.
yes. That would make more sense, right? That if this company keeps increasing the price of this, at some point consumers are going to say, well, that's too pricey for me. That's too much. So they're gonna sell less and less. Y'all see that? They're gonna eventually sell less because as you reach a point where consumers are like, no, it's not worth it to me to pay that amount for this particular game. All right. So what we're gonna do is attempt to graph a little something over here on the right. All right. So this right here. We got the y-axis, we got the x-axis, or the p. This is really p, and this is really RP. So down here is like prices per unit, and this is like revenue. So again, what's the shape of this graph? What's the shape?
Quadratic.
Quadratic. So I'm gonna just do a little something right quick. So let's just say this is 10,000. This is maybe we should do 5,000 here. 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. So if I plot some points, we have points 20, 14,000. We have 25, 14,375. We have 30, 13,500. All right. So I'm going to just plot it real quick. 25, 30. 20, 40, a little bit below 15,000, 25, a little bit above that. It's doing something like this. It's going to do something like this. All right. So eventually, if your prices go to be too extreme, then you're not going to make any revenue off of that. All right. So it's for B. It says find a unit price that will yield a maximum revenue. We want to know how much should we sell this video game for. Now, in this section, we found maximum, the maximum and the minimum. What's another name for the maximum and minimum?
The high and the low price.
In this section, what did you learn was another math term for the maximum and minimum? The maximum and minimum are also called the blank of a function.
Vertex.
Vertex, yes. All right, let's just attempt to find the vertex real quick. All right, so we have RP equals negative 25 p squared plus 1200 p. What's the first step to putting this in standard form?
You gotta factor
Factor it out or what?
the negative 25.
Correct. Negative 25 times something. What goes inside the parentheses?
P squared.
p squared plus, let's see,
1200 p.
What's the sign?
Oh, it changed. So it'll be
Minus.
1200 p.
Minus what? We factored out a negative 25.
48.
48 p. All right. Try to do this real quickly because I know we're out of time. Negative 25 times p squared minus 48p. What do we put inside the parentheses?
You divide negative 48 by 2.
So that's
Yep.
And it's negative 24.
And then do what with that?
You got to square it.
Square it, so it's 576
Very good.
minus 576.
Good. So that's R of P equals negative 25 times something squared. And then we're going to take something out. What are we taking out?
Negative
The extra
25.
information.
What is it?
Negative 14,400.
Positive, right?
Oh yes,
You said 14,500.
400.
All right, 400. All right. And then here will be P minus what? Here's the trick. Find the square root of this number.
24.
24. 24. All right. How much should we sell this video game for? How much should we sell this video game for?
$24.
$24. And how much are we going to get in revenue if we plug in $24? That's my K.
14,400.
Exactly. We should charge $24. That will give us the max point. All right.